everyone, and welcome. So glad to see you this afternoon. Feel free to keep eating during our time together. My name is Carrie Priest, and I'm an associate professor here in the Staley School of Leadership Studies, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the What Matters to Me and Why lecture series. So to each of you in this room and to those who are joining us by Zoom, we welcome you today. Our series is sponsored this fall by the Staley School of Leadership Studies, and it's supported by a cross-campus planning committee whose names appear here on the screen. And if you're in the room, could you just give a wave and let's appreciate our planning team. The purpose of this series is to build and strengthen our community through gathering and reflecting on what matters most. The truth is that we all have stories to share and that reflect our values and our life experiences, hard choices we've made, and lessons learned. And so whether you share that story from a podium, like our speaker is today, or whether you share that in a quiet moment with a colleague in a staff meeting or a walk and talk across campus, we all have the opportunity to speak what matters to us and to hear what matters to others in pursuit of finding and achieving shared goals. And so we've truly have a wonderful speaker modeling vulnerable storytelling with us today. Now I'd like to invite Dee Freeman to give our speaker's introduction. Dee is currently a senior who will be graduating in December in criminology. He is a track athlete, a former track athlete here at K-State, and has aspirations for the U.S. Marshal Service long term. So let's welcome Dee as he gives the introduction today.
Hello, good afternoon. Dr. B. Stoney is an associate professor of curriculum and institution specializing in physical and multicultural education. She earned a bachelor's in secondary education and master's in kinesiology from University of Texas at El Paso and a doctorate in special education and multicultural education at the University of Texas at Austin. She has been a faculty member at K-State since 1999. Her research interests include multicultural issues in public schools, working for teachers, administrators, and staff members, and diverse issues in the workplace. In addition to being an award-winning faculty member, Dr. Stoney has a Hall of Fame student athlete in college and a coach at the college level. She currently serves as K-State faculty athletic representative, helping students excel in sports and in the classroom. Dr. Stoney to me is a friend, family member, and so much more. Since I've been here my first year, it was different coming from Canton, Mississippi, but I met Dr. Stoney, and she's made my trip, my visit, my experience here 1,000 times better. I'm not sure what I would do without Dr. Stoney at this point, but I mean, she's taught me so much more than I knew when I first got here. In addition, she has served as K-State Tilford Fellow, held the office of President and Research Association for Minority Professors, and active with K-State's Black Faculty Staff Alliance. Please welcome Dr. Stoney as she shares her talk entitled, I'm Coming Home.
Is the mic okay? How about now? Oh, wow. I'm sorry, I'm a very soft-spoken person, only in the classroom, but when I'm on the court, it's a whole different voice. Dee, thank you very much for that introduction. I appreciate it. And to the committee, thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about me. Some of you know some things about me, but most of you do not. And so when I was asked to be the person as a speaker for the What Matters to Me and Why, I froze because I get to be vulnerable at this point. And as we know, we love to talk about others, but, well, some of us, that's true. But at the same time, I personally find it difficult to shine a spotlight on myself. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to read from this because I don't want to ramble. I just want to stay focused because there's a part in my talk where it probably brings tears to my eyes, and so I want to kind of control that in some form or fashion. So good afternoon for you all attending this presentation, and good afternoon to those who are connected to us via Zoom. I'm the type of person that when I do things, I invite my family. So my family is tied in somewhere on Zoom into this, and I welcome them truly, truly, because without the support of my family, I'm no one. My talk today, I will share the impact of returning home and how the path to returning to one's hometown caused me to look into my past and my present experiences that resurface some familiarity, some common and uncommon, landscapes in the neighborhood where I lived. I'm reminded it is where I've come from and where I have been that directly connects me to students, colleagues, and my positions in life. I want to begin my talk by starting, we originated from Africa. I'm from a historical lineage of the Stoney plantation located in South Carolina. I come from slavery. I come from Trail of Tears. My past includes voting rights. I'm sorry, I need some water. Okay. Voting rights, Jim Crow laws, Juneteenth, to civil rights, from an educated past to an educated future. This particular African proverb always rings true to me, and I try to read it every day. Where you will sit when you're old shows where you stood in your youth. Somewhere in my youth, I knew I always wanted to be a doctor. I just wasn't sure at what level. But then I also realized I love education. I come from Namkwan Namparato, which means never unprepared. And I'm always prepared to do something different, something new. This is my educated past. Up in the upper left-hand corner is the historical lineage I mentioned, which is from my father's side. The lower right is from my father's side, and then the lower left is from my mother's side of the family. This is the present. I love the fact that my educated nieces and nephews have made it to college. The two twins that you see in your right, my left, are juniors at Emory-Riddle, and the young lady with a hat on in the picture with my mom and dad, my niece Dominique, she is now a student at Oregon State University majoring in psychology. With the twins, one is in aeronautics, and the other is in aeronautics computer space engineer, I'm sorry. Diversity, as you know, started with me, and it holds true to what I do on a daily basis. My family, both immediate and extended, consists of the following: Black, African American, Cherokee, white, Hispanic, German Hispanic, Mexican Spaniard, Filipino, Syrian Lebanese, Ukraine, and Irish. So you see, diversity has always been a part of my life. But I also learned through DNA that we are 43% Cameroon, Congo, and Southern Bantu. We are 36% Benin and Togo, 7% Ivory Coast, Ghana, 4% English, Wales, and Northwestern Europe, 4% Scottish, 2% Nigerian, and 2% Mali. So I guess you could say I'm a host of a little bit of everything, but I identify as being Black. I am from the 4th generation of educators, 3rd generation masters, 1st generation PhD. Education was not just a conversation in our household, it was the law. While we did not know which college we would attend, we all knew we were going to go to college. Understand, we had a choice, however, my dad only gave us 2 choices. It was either Yale or jail, and the second one was never an option. But yet I had two siblings that challenged that intellectual choice. I'm number 6 of 8 children, and we are all educated and all successful. So we come from the backline, my siblings and I, education, social workers, IT, nursing, radiologist, and now my younger sister, I'm very proud of her, is now the first, I know she's gonna shoot me for saying this, but she's the first African-American female winemaker in the Northwest. She has made the historical archives. Okay, Donna, it's okay. We'll live. You see, my family history is me. It's home. My upbringing consists of values of yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, and no, sir. We were raised by parents who prepared us for the world and all its challenges. From different perspectives, they built us strong collectively as a family, but as individuals. Our parents taught us how to be passionate about education and compassionate about people, even when they did not look like us. We were raised by a mother who was our strength, who taught us how to be independent, strong-willed, and loving. My mom today, see this part right here. My mother today suffers from Alzheimer's. She's in that final stage of, I'm glad she opens her eyes every day. And somewhere she's gonna be blessed because we have her to thank for where we are today. My dad, who has since passed on, he taught us how to tell time. I forgot my pencil, so I'm gonna demonstrate something. And I don't, Zoom, well, people will not be able to see this. Oh, okay, oh, right here, come here, Dee. I'll do it right here. My dad, when he was teaching us how to tell time, I got to sit close to the mic. Okay. My dad, when he was teaching us how to tell time, it was so frustrating, I don't know for who, for him or for us. So he would say, from 12 to 6 is after, and from 6 to 12 is until. Repeat that. Don't look at the clock.
From 12 to 6 is after, and from 6 to 12 is until.
So if the little hand is on the 9 and the big hand is on the 12, what time is it?
Little hand on the 9.
That's what he would do. Except he had a pencil. So he would say, it's, what time is it?
9 o'clock.
You got it right. Actually, you didn't, but that's not. So it was frustrating having that pencil popped up above your head, but he also taught us that when you're working with mathematics, especially when you're adding, that you don't say 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, you had to actually go 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 6, plus 8, and you had, and he'd sit there with that pencil until you actually added it correctly for him. But he taught us how to be patient with ourselves and how to solve problems. He taught us to be thoughtful, kind when speaking to people, and confident in articulating our ideas that may not sound right to others, but you're getting your point across. We were a very close-knit family, and it's how we were raised by living in the same values, and that is to appreciate people for who they are. For my dad, he would always say, it doesn't matter the skin color, people are people. And this is how I live my life every day. People are people. I do not know a stranger. I was in the elevator with a young man this morning, a white young man, and I walked into the elevator. He just kind of looked at me. I was like, how you doing this morning? He's like, me? I'm like, dude, we the only two in the elevator. Yes, you. How are you this morning? Where are you from? And I could tell he was quite reserved and talk because he didn't know who I was. And that was okay because I'm not dressed like a professor. I chose to dress like this today because it is, what's today, Mark? We teach today. It's Thursday. Tuesday, Thursday is PE day. So I didn't wear high heels or a dress. I wanted to be comfortable. And on Tuesday and Thursday, this is my comfort zone. If this lecture had been on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, I would have had on a dress. So Carrie, this is it, yeah. As I said to Mark, I purposely wore, oh, you don't get it? Okay, we got it. I wear Adidas on this side of campus, but when I go over to athletics, I'm in all Nike, purple down. I respect athletics. You see, I also grew up in a neighborhood where we watched over one another. To a point that, when you were going home, walking down the road, if you got into any type of trouble, before you hit the doorstep, parents already had the message. And you couldn't even begin to explain what happened because they already received that message. I grew up in a living and thriving community where family was not just a word we took lightly. A community of streets like Elvira, Ramona, Jose, Valdez, Anita, which was separated by another community a street called Bloomington. So even though our street had a lot of Hispanic names, it was a Black neighborhood that we truly looked out for one another. We all grew up in very large families. Like I said, I was one of 6. The folks across the street from us, at an angle, they had 12 kids. The house next to that house had 11. The house next to that one had 10. So we were along the street, large family. So we knew one another. The idea was if one person got into a fight on the block, we all joined in. We all joined in. And as a matter of fact, because I was such a tomboy when I grew up, I always hung out with the fellas. I have no reason why, but I always did. And I can recall that in between the 2 streets, we had an alley, like they have set here in Manhattan. And our street decided we wanted to rock the other street. And so me with the guys, we were leaning against like a hurricane fence. You know what a hurricane fence is? It's like your 4-foot tall fence, has the cross with the spikes. Well, I was the lookout person because they didn't think I could throw a rock because I was a girl. And I had the best rock throwing hand you could imagine. And so when I was leaning up against the fence, and when I turned to say, guys, they're coming, well, they all piled on me, and I had this big old gash. It was probably about 3 inches deep. Yeah, never told my mom because the guys were like, don't you tell your mom, because then you're a girl. A girl not supposed to tell their mom. You're supposed to keep that clean. I mean, they were telling me what to do to it. Now, mind you, my mom was a nurse. One would think I would have shared that with her because it took that scar almost 22 years to disappear. And I think had I shared that with her, yes, I would have had stitches. Yes, I would have got a whooping. Yes, I would have whooped the guys' butts as well because I'm following them instead of doing what I shouldn't have been doing. That was rocking the neighborhood. My community we lived in was called Molina. That neighborhood really was my groundbreaking for me and what I wanted to do in life. I always knew I wanted to teach, but I didn't know in what capacity. So my senior year in high school, I was a hurdler. And my senior year in high school, my coach, in her infamous wisdom, wanted me to teach a visually impaired person how to run the hurdle. That was a challenge. He wasn't totally blind, he was just visually impaired. So to get to the first hurdle from the blocks is exactly 7 steps. So we walked those 7 steps. And when we got to the point where he would have raised his left leg, I was a right-legged hurdler. He was left dominant. I told him, you have to lift your leg and go over the hurdle. It was, of course, at his lowest level. And I said to my coach, I said, Coach, I got it. I did it. He did it. He walked the 7 steps. He got his leg over. She goes, now teach him how to run it. That's when I realized I wanted to be a coach and I wanted to be a teacher. Because it was something in that young man that sparked me that day. And I said, I could do this. This is an easy job. But it wasn't. Because he didn't know how to run. So Mark, he missed class that day on movement. So I had to teach him literally how to run. We started at a prance, a slow prance, and then to where he was comfortable enough to run without his cane. And he hit that hurdle. No, he didn't cross it. He hit the hurdle, okay? And, of course, we had an EMT come out and take the young man to the hospital because he ended up breaking his ankle. But he said he wanted to do it again. So for me, that was probably my greatest joy as a high school senior that I was able to do that for him. I learned a lot of values and traditions, family, histories, living in that neighborhood called Molina. Unfortunately, in 1978, we relocated to Portland, Oregon, which is actually a suburb, which is called Troutdale, which is the gateway to the gorge. And I have to say, that's where my family resides today, but I have to say, I lost something. I lost that family. I lost the history, but I kept those values. I share this introduction of my talk to give you a snapshot of why I titled my talk, I'm Going Home. It has been 20-plus years now since visiting Corpus Christi, Texas, which is my hometown, my birthplace, which is known as the Lone Star State, the sparkling city by the sea, South Padre Island National Seashore, the real windy city in March to fly kites, mesquite trees, serious football, great and fantastic barbecue. Sorry, Kansas City, Memphis, South Carolina, you all do not compare. Am I right, Trina? Yes. That is true. While visiting in Molina, the community, the day after we laid our brother to rest. Hello? We toured our neighborhood. Thank you, you got me off on that one. I appreciate it. We toured our neighborhood, and it wasn't the same. But what was odd about it, but the people didn't change. Our neighborhood street is where I learned how to play foursquare, basketball, baseball, hide and go seek, tag, football. Yeah, I was the only girl playing football, and then one day my dad told me I couldn't play any longer because I started developing. That hurt. In and out, if you're familiar with that game, in and out. So in my formative years, I was very athletic, which contributed significantly to who I am today. Usually I was the only girl playing with the boys, playing the football, basketball, all the sports, and my baby brother, Seth, and his friends. I can recall playing basketball one day. His friend Billy Ray was a little upset because I'm talking trash, I'm scoring over him because he was guarding me. And when I went up for a rebound, I went up this way, and as I was bringing it down, he came from behind and took me this way. And I hit my head on the concrete, caused me to have a concussion. And what I learned when I was back home a couple of weeks ago, he said he ran and hid under the bed because he knew he was in trouble with me. Not with my mom, not with his mom, but with me. I thought that was very interesting. You know, we were the type of kids that our backboards were tacked to Chinaberry trees. We had a backyard where we made a homemade basketball court so we could play. We had moments of just having fun. I'm sorry, I didn't even go through this, did I? Stop clicking, I apologize. This is my family, most of them. I'm just gonna go through it as I'm talking. But having grown up in a neighborhood, planting to seed and striving and becoming the best competitive person and athlete I could be. When I am challenged, even today, it brings out that competitiveness in me, which started at home. It was like always Don, my third to the oldest brother, and I, we would play against Val and Cheryl, my two sisters. When we lost, it taught me really how to lose gracefully and get back on my feet and persevere. Now, outside of academics, this is where I'm shifting. We're a family, we're always laughing, we're doing something. In the lower, your left hand, that is my mom. And we took this picture because she's the oldest living family member, and she's holding the youngest living great-grandson. I want to go outside of academics for a little bit. I have to say, I've had two most significant moments in my life, particularly in high school. Outside of the young man teaching him how to hurdle, I was the only freshman women's basketball varsity player in my year. And that was very unusual when that happened. I played with two sisters and three cousins. So we were like the family affair, so to speak. And back then, you know, I'm old, I will admit that. We played the 3-on-3 before it became 5-on-5. Some of you may remember that. And my second most significant moment was my high school scoring record. I scored 50 points and a half, and that still remains today. Yeah, we won 101-60. I didn't play the rest of the game. I was benched. I don't know why, but I was benched. But I learned while I was home that record still holds today. And being a competitive athlete, I won a full ride scholarship to UTEP, Texas El Paso. There I was the first women basketball player to be selected to the All-Western Athletic Conference, first team as a freshman. I held a scoring record for 30 years at my university. It was broken 9 years ago. But 30 years, that's a long time. I was also, as Dee mentioned, selected into the Hall of Fame, and I was also recognized as the Golden Nugget, which is the outstanding alumnus in the College of Education. I served as assistant women's basketball coach at UTEP and taught in the physical education department. When I left UTEP to pursue my coaching career at a D2 institution, is where I had a 96% graduation rate. I produced 2 All-Americans, 3 Southland All-Conference academic team student athletes. So you see, academics is very important to me. I go back to what my dad said, Yale or jail. And this is how I treat my students today. As an assistant and head coach, like I said, I stressed academics to our student and student athletes, something I will and always will have passion about today. I met with a student yesterday, and she wanted to talk about one thing. I want to talk about academic success. Because I said, your success is when I get to see you walk across the stage when I hear your name. That is my success for you. I want to make an impact on all our students, as well as our student athletes, to let them know that it is doable. You can do what I am doing. I transitioned out of coaching and moved into officiating. I officiated at all levels for 17 years, but I missed the D1 level of officiating by 1 year. That's the highest goal you can actually receive. I also served as the evaluator for the Big 12, where I evaluate officials. K-State was my home school. I had to relinquish that duty because I became the faculty athletics representative here at K-State. It was as I was told by the former commissioner, it was a conflict of interest because he felt I would have an influence over the officials. And the only thing I had in common with the official was, hello, see you after the game. That was it. But he thought differently. But as your FAR here, I enjoy what I do. I get to work with talented student athletes like Dee. You know, I get to be a part of the ringing of the bell, so to speak, that says we had 21 graduates on the field when we opened up in football. We have quite a few All-Americans, all academic Big 12 student athletes. My role is institution control to make sure that we stay in compliance with NCAA. I represent K-State in both the Big 12 and as well as the NCAA. With the NCAA, I also serve and have served on several committees. I've served on the medical aspect because I'm always interested in what happens to our student athletes from head to toe. I served on championship to see where each team, and we had 89 championship games that occur. So it was good to see that moment occur, but also it was good to understand how each of those games are set, where they're set, who can bid for what arenas to have your events held. I currently serve on the NCAA Women's Rules Committee, Basketball Committee. So when there are new rules that come through, I'm in the room, but also on the men's side, talking about changes in in basketball. One thing I love about my position as the FAR, I have the luxury of spending a great deal of time with our student athletes, talking with them one-on-one, or travel with them as well. I don't travel often, but when I do, it gives me the opportunity to learn more about them as individuals away from home, so to speak. So why did I title this I'm Coming Home? Everything about it was started at my hometown, Corpus Christi, Texas. It's where I grew up. It reflected my values, my teaching, my collaborating, and my diversity. It has taught me never to forget where I come from. Our home was our starting place in learning about who I am as a person. This woman that I have up here, she is a principal at an elementary school in Jamaica. She's part of my lineage as where we started in Jamaica and in other countries. I'm very proud of her because she fights every day to make sure her kids are just fed, let alone make it to school. And we often have conversations about, so what's your next step in making sure these babies graduate? She said, I would really like to see them make it to your level at Kansas State University. So my goal is to figure out how her and I are going to get her kids to where they need to be. I was reminded on September 14th, this is Jimmy and Zeke. I was told I have to include Jimmy and Zeke. They're part of the family, so I'm okay. I was reminded on September 14th, when we returned to our familiar and old neighborhood, where the landscape was different, but the people did not change. I was quickly reminded who I was, the athlete, the student, the competitive girl from the neighborhood. I put this picture up because my niece, Nicole, she served 21 years of service and now a sergeant, finished as a sergeant. I'm very proud of her because I can recall when she finished high school, she said, "Amby, I want to go to school, but I don't know what to do." So we sat and had a long conversation, and here she ended up in the National Guard, very successful. I end with Maya Angelou's quote. This is my grandbaby. "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Thank you.
So we're going to entertain some questions now. If you would just raise your hand, we'll bring you a microphone so that our friends on Zoom can also hear, and Dr. Stoney will respond.
No questions?
My husband's been very passionate about women's, girls' basketball, so it's really fun to hear your stories. I am guessing, though, that at the time you were coaching at the college level, you were probably one of only a few African-American women. What was that like? What are lessons learned? What do we need to know?
Yes. Am I on? Yeah. Yes, I was one of few, especially in our conference. It was challenging. Even when I can recall interviewing for the position, and I had the phone interview. We didn't have real technology back then. But when I met the AD, who was also the head football coach, when I arrived on campus, he said, "Oh, you're black." And I was like, "Oh, you're kidding." I didn't know that. He said, "Well, your incoming team, your returning team, the majority of your student athletes are black, so what are you going to do to recruit white women?" And I had to not go there in my head. And I said, "I recruit student athletes and students. Race is not an issue for me." I said, "If they are academically strong and they can play basketball, we're going to recruit them." I said, "And when you recruited for your football team, did you just recruit the black guys?" I said, "Because I looked at, I did my history, and I said, I see the majority of people on your team are black, so we're the white boys." He said, "I like you, you're hired." And even in working with our student athletes, I was young myself, maybe at the most 4 years older than most of my student athletes. But we developed a great line of respect that I'm the coach, you're a student athlete. I'm not your friend, but I'm your mentor. I had to have strict guidelines to help me get through it, because when I met the other coaches in the conference, they were all much older than me. So, go girls. I'll just hand you my mic.
Thank you for your speech and your stories and everything. I have a question. So when you're sitting on the women's rules committee for basketball, what is like the most challenging parts, and what kind of things that you've been throughout your life and in K-State and stuff like that that's helped you give a voice to certain rules or certain things that go on when you have those meetings for new rules?
Sitting at the table, I'm the only faculty. The rest are all coaches. So to bring that different perspective, my voice wasn't heard at first, and it was frustrating. And when I sort of gave them my resume, I earned that respect. Another challenging thing about sitting in that room is, especially when you're with the men group as well, is I was amazed that there were more people who looked like me than looked like someone not like me, and I mean that by race this time. And which was quite interesting because they kept referring to me. Dr. Stoney, you have anything to say? Dr. Stoney, what do you need? Dr. Stoney, I didn't hear you respond to that, which was something totally opposite of what I was used to. In situations like that, it has propelled me to observe, even here at K-State. I observe, I listen, and then I have input. I try not to input first because I want to hear your perspective. I also want to know your baseline and what you're talking about to make sure I'm on the same page as you. It can be frustrating when you have folks who say, oh, I understand what you're saying, but I haven't said anything. So I allow them to say what they need to say, and then I come back with, well, now that you asked me for my opinion, now let me share. It can be frustrating. Other questions?
With being so successful as an athlete and mentor, coach, and faculty, how do you like set goals for yourself, like day to day, to keep pushing and get better?
Setting goals for myself, I find that challenging every day because I have to come up with something new. What did I not challenge myself with yesterday? So the one thing I do challenge myself with every day is I'll meet someone new, learn more about them, and then how can I fit them into my busy schedule because I'm constantly on the road. That's what I like sharing with student athletes because like I tell them, between practice, school, traveling, and performance, you don't really have a lot of time. It's all about time management. And that's the one thing I have learned. I live in two worlds. I live on this side of campus, which is my academic world, and then I live on the other side of my world, which is athletics. The key to it, I have to compartmentalize. When I'm on this side of campus, it's strictly academics. And when I'm in athletics, it's strictly athletics, even though I have to tap into on the academic side because I'm checking on grades, I'm checking on progress toward degree, I'm in the compliance office, checking on things, make sure we're in compliance with a lot of things. I'm in the academic office talking to all the counselors who work with our student athletes. Are we having any issues? What are our concerns? I have to compartmentalize it that way because when I start crossing them, it is stressful. So I make sure that one, I stay on both one side of the campus when I'm on that side of campus.
Juggling microphones. I have a question related to your academic side, but I think it may apply to both. So I know you have been a champion and a leader in helping K-State advance in areas of multicultural education and intercultural learning and development. And for those of us in the room who are faculty or staff and work with students and want to continue to advance that, what advice do you have for us as educators in the areas of intercultural development?
Intercultural development, I learned about intercultural development about 9 years ago, attending different trainings in Portland, Oregon at Reed College. And I recall that I thought I knew everything. I'm going to be honest with you, I really thought I did. Yes, I know how to work with folks from international level, to bring it into our domestic kids, learn about the international students, to learn I knew nothing. And it opened a door for me to be vulnerable because I wasn't willing to at first because I knew everything. But this particular session I attended, I recall the instructor saying, who knows everything? Because, you know, we all have that ego. He says, so what do you know about intercultural learning? And I went blank because I wasn't expecting that question. I said, well, it's just what it is, intercultural learning. He said, no, there are real definitions out there. He said, so we're going to use you for an example. I was the example of the whole, it was a 5-day conference. So I was the example for 5 days. It humbled me because he brought in students from different countries that were on Reed's campus to talk with me. And they spoke their language, and I sat there just dumbfounded. It took me aback. But it also taught me that never make the assumption you know everything about everyone. Ask. And so the one question I learned to ask is, how do you identify yourself racially and or ethnically? And that is my starting point when I work with students, or whether they're domestic or international, because I need to also let them tell me how they are identifying themselves, as opposed to me making the assumption in how I want to identify you. Okay.
I have a question from Zoom. As a female leader, what has been your biggest barrier in your career? And do you have any advice for the next generation of female leaders?
My biggest barrier? God, okay, I have to think of one at least. Because I've had several. I would say my biggest barrier, like most women, breaking that glass ceiling. And in athletics, that glass ceiling is quite tough to break. Whether it's in coaching, whether it's in administration, it's very difficult to get through that ceiling. So I would say my advice to whomever asked the question is find other mentors, particularly female mentors, to help you move along. And the reason why I say that, because I have a lot of great female colleagues and friends that have pushed me along. And here's a prime example. I was talking to my colleague, Trina, and then some folks over in the College of Education. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous to do this. And it was their strength that gave me the opportunity to say, I got this. 2 days ago, I wouldn't have spoken to anyone. But yesterday I did, and it gave me the strength. And I was like, yeah, I do have this. So you have to find those who are willing to help lift you up and will recognize your talents. I've had a lot of great women who recognize my talents. I use Jill Shields as an example, our executive deputy AD in athletics, that I constantly want to ask her, what's next? What do I do next? So I see her as my mentor in helping me through the position I'm in as the FAR. But I also talk to other female faculty athletics representative. Two types. I talk to the 5 FAR Black women. I'm in this position since my 11th year. I was the first African-American female as an FAR, NCAA, which I thought was quite interesting. But now we have 5, so there's 6 of us. So I constantly call them or email them to give me, okay, I need some strength here. How can you help me? And then I also talk to the females in Big 12, which are all white females. It's because I want to hear their perspective and their lenses and what they're dealing with and how to uplift me.
Hi, Dr. Stoney. Can you share a little bit about your name? And this question popped into mind when the question about identity was asked. So from Bieta, let me know if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, to B. And I'm asking you this because I have a very uncommon name, and whether I pronounce it as Madai, as most people in Kansas, or Madai. Once in a while I get the email, maybe, thinking maybe some people might think I'm a man or a boy or not sure. Or I get so what are you question, ethnicity. What ethnicity are you? My name's in the Bible, by the way. Madai was Noah's grandkid. But so I'm curious to know what your experience has been with your name.
Okay, my name is spelled B-E-Etta. It is pronounced Bieta. So when you see it plastered to me, I have everyone wanted to, Beta. And I always say, well, can I tell you how to pronounce it? No, let me figure it out, And so I let them continue on. And I say, no, it's actually B. They say, yeah, but there's the other part to it. I say, no, I use B because this is how you will remember me. My name is a verb, but I'm actually a pronoun. I'm often mistaken as a guy as B. Stoney because it becomes Bo, Bob, and everything else but B. I decided to go by B because it's ambiguous. So when you hear my name, you're not going to know my race nor my gender. And I have to share with you when I did a training over in one of the school districts not far from here. And I just had B. Stoney. And when I arrived at the school, I was unpacking my training gear and didn't realize I was talking to the superintendent. And he didn't realize he was talking to me. He goes, yeah, we're expecting someone from K-State to help us go through some multicultural training, Dr. Stoney. He said, I don't know if it's a man or if it's a woman. I was like, really? What time are you expecting this person? And he said, well, maybe in about 10 minutes. Excuse me. Now, mind you, I'm in the K-State car. So help me understand that. So when we finally got into the building, the administrative assistant said, hi, Dr. Stoney, how you doing? Beat red. I said, I'm doing awesome. And the superintendent said, why didn't you tell me it was you? I said, well, you never gave me the opportunity. He said, well, I thought you were a guy. I was expecting a guy. I said, now that you have a female, now what? He goes, I'm scared. But things went well for us. So my identity as B is very important. I use B because I know people will mispronounce my name. That's why I like to ask people, how do you pronounce your name? Because for me, it changes my identity. And I will not allow anyone to change that identity for me. So it's B, B-E, the verb, but a pronoun. No other questions? Oh, quiet group. Okay.
So we're sitting here in this room. We're white, black, Asian, Latino, we're everything in this room. And we're a very intercultural group in this room. Give us your top 1, 2, 3 tips. How can we take what we have in this room and extend it out there into the other portals of our life where things are kind of nuts in places?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are nuts. First of all, I would ask, who are you? Do you know who you are? What are your biases you have dealt and willing to say, I have these biases? Because if you can't do that personal check, you can't go out in the portals because you're not understanding our students. And I believe that's why I get along so well with a lot of our students, because I know who I am. I know my biases. I know what I'm vulnerable with. I know my strength. But I also know I have to give that person the opportunity to tell me who they are. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, get over it. Get over it. If you don't get over it, you still won't be able to connect with our students. We're so cautious in, oh my gosh, I don't want to offend, or we're cautious in saying, I don't want them to make the assumption I am. Well, okay, you are. So how are you dealing with it now? Tip number 3, just relax. I think we have enough stress already. Just relax, be you, but be honest with you. Because when you're not honest, it goes back to number 1. You don't know who you are. So those are my 3 tips to you all. Just relax. That wasn't hard. That was my conversation. That's my wheelhouse.
Good afternoon, Dr. Stoney. First of all, I want to tell you that I love you.
Oh,
in a
thank you.
loving way. love.
Family.
Eat your food, love you.
Gotcha.
So in recruiting with athletes, I mean, you can make the grades, you can have the talent, but how do you recruit with the heart? Because some people just have the heart to get it done. How do you guys see that?
Oh, the heart. Oh, my goodness. Okay, now that's a hard one. In recruiting, I have the opportunity to meet with, we call them PSAs, prospective student athletes, PSAs and their families when they come in on a recruiting trip. I myself make sure when I introduce myself to the parent, I always say my name and my role. And then I ask them, where are you from? Did you have a game last night? If you did, what position you play? How did you do that? And then I talk about academics, because academics is the stress, not the stress, but the stressed conversation that I can see on parents' face when we're talking about academics, because I know they want their kids to be successful. We have living proof. When they come into my world, I always have a student athlete, because I could only give them the faculty version, but our student athletes can give them the lived version. And I know having our student athletes being a part of when we recruit, that really helps parents And they are talking from their hearts also, because those are their experiences. Whether they're good days or bad days, they still talk about their love for Kansas. They talk about their love for the university, but also from the heart, the love of their sport and their successes in their sport. Recruiting is tough. I recall there was one young man that he had it narrowed down between us and I think it was Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. And I asked him, I said, so where's your next visit? And he was kind of hesitant, which I understand, because, you know, kids don't like to say where their next visits are. And he said, well, I'm going to Maryland. I was like, well, I'll tell you what, whether it's K-State or Maryland, I wish you nothing but the best and success. He came to K-State. I'm not going to talk negatively about any program. None of us will, because we don't know those programs. We know K-State. We know K-State athletics. We know K-State faculty. We know Kansas. We know Manhattan. And for a lot of parents, that is quite comforting. Oh, are you ready to say?
I have one, maybe last one. We'll see. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you for everything that you do for K-State. We are grateful.
Oh, thank you.
So here's a question about you.
Oh.
How do you take care of you? I keep having this conversation with esteemed colleagues, and I'm surrounded by workaholics, and you know we don't seem to have our balance quite right. So how do you take care of you?
I have a massage twice a month. I work out with my trainer, but middle of June till about middle of August, I go home. Home is Oregon. And when we go home, when I say we, I'm referencing Michael, my spouse, for me, I'm a water baby. So anything water, I'm in it. And the fact that Oregon is such a beautiful place that you can go just about anywhere and relax. I relax by drinking a lot of wine. I relax by listening to different conversations, because the lifestyle in Portland is very different than the lifestyle here in Manhattan. And it's nice to know that I can sit next to a person I don't even know and have conversation about politics or about the theater or about comedy. And for me, that's quite relaxing. Not that I cannot get it here, but I get to have it with people who do not have an American accent. And for me, that's so relaxing. But the key to it, I'm a workaholic, I will admit that. On Friday nights, every Friday night in a month, if there's not a sporting event, my husband and I, we go out to dinner. It's our time, because he will not see me otherwise. So at 5 o'clock p.m. when I leave campus, my phone is off, his phone is off, and we do not answer the phone until 10 o'clock the next morning. If someone calls us, we don't answer, because all our friends know, we can't go there. If someone stops by, oh, yeah, it's Friday night. I'm sorry, I got to go. But I have to remember to take care of myself, because if I don't, I wouldn't be able to do the two positions that I have, nor will I be able to take care of our students. But I always remind myself to take care of self. Workaholics. Any other questions? Well, I want to say thank you all for this opportunity. It's been wonderful.
Thank you again, Dr. Stoney. It has been wonderful, and we appreciate your insights. We do have a lecture coming up again on the 14th with Dr. Justin Kastner. Hope you can join us. And just a few other reminders, KS Unite coming up November 6th, as well as a new series on difficult dialogues starting October 17th. That you can learn more from Diversity Inclusion website. Thanks again.